This is the tragic story of Hugo, the orca. Hugo was captured at around 4 to 6 years of age in February 1968 in Vaughan Bay, Washington. Hugo, named after an airplane pilot, was then sent to the Miami Seaquarium. It took him 85 days to arrive. Hugo was then placed into a pool dubbed the Celebrity Pool, which is so small, today it houses manatees.
And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the tank where Hugo the orca lived while they were building the Killer Whale Stadium. At 12 feet deep and about 15 to 20 feet long. Far too small for a 22-foot, 12,000-pound orca.
He lived in that tank for 2 years, performing daily. Then, in August of 1970, Lolita the orca was captured.
Sounds they made were what we really noticed, what you really felt were the cries of the both small ones and the adult ones. And I remember one day I stopped over there right close to them with my children that were very small at the time, and they kept saying, "Why are they crying? They're crying." It just broke your heart, everybody that saw them. And you kept wanting them to let them go. What harassing them.
Lolita was purchased for $6,000 by the Miami Seaquarium. A small circular tank was constructed for Lolita called the Whale Bowl. Hugo and Lolita started to call out for each other, so the trainers put them together. At first, they were aggressive towards each other. In addition, Hugo became aggressive towards his handlers. Nevertheless, the orca completed 5 to 6 shows per day for the 10 years they were together. Hugo and Lolita eventually mated, much to the delight of Seaquarium employees. Lolita was pregnant a few times, but never delivered a live offspring. An astrologer was hired to foresee the future of the two whales. Hugo died in March 1980 of a brain aneurysm, according to Marine Mammal Inventory reports. He had a history of slamming into tank walls, and once, he even broke the glass viewing windows, cutting off the tip of his nose. The brain aneurysm was a consequence of him repeatedly smashing his head against the concrete walls. It was called an act of suicide. Hugo had spent 12 years in captivity at the Seaquarium. After 12 years of performing and making millions for the Miami Seaquarium, his reward was the Seaquarium ditching his body into a dump. No plaques, no statues, no mention of his name anywhere at the park. He never saw the ocean or his mother again, just like Lolita. There have been many reported suicide attempts by cetaceans. If this isn't a determinate sign these animals don't belong in confined spaces, what is? Research has proven that orcas have a number of complex cognitive abilities, such as self-recognition and the ability to feel empathy, which means that cetaceans, just as humans, are vulnerable to emotional and social stresses that can lead to considerable harm. Today, Lolita still lives alone in her tank, with no other killer whale companions. She has been living in that same tiny tank for over 50 years and is the oldest living killer whale in captivity.
Oh, wow. I mean, I knew this was small, but this small? On an average day when I'm out with orca in the wild, I can follow them for 5 to 8 hours, and I can follow them over easily 50 kilometers. And in that time frame, I would see them typically sleeping, hunting, socializing. They would be food sharing. They would obviously be traveling during that time frame. And yet when you see an orca in captivity, you see them just either lying there despondently, or you see what's termed stereotypic behaviors. And those are abnormal, repetitive behaviors. So that might be chewing on the concrete, it might be swimming in a circle. People are used to seeing animals like bears or tigers pacing up and down. You see exactly the same thing with whales and dolphins when you know what to look for. They just go round and round the tank. They typically surface at exactly the same spot. And the fact that these animals can't travel, they're confined within these tiny little blue cylinders, is really, really difficult to watch. So this is very typical stereotypic behavior. Just head lifting like that. So I just went in to see Lolita, and I know the facts. I mean, I know exactly the dimensions of the tank. I know the dimensions of her, but when you actually see it, you realize how tragically small that tank is. So there's a very robust plan in place to help Lolita retire. It involves training her for simple things like being able to move in a bigger environment and to be able to catch live fish again. And we would never just throw her out into the ocean and just say, right, you're on your own, sunshine. So the idea with the rehabilitation plan is that she would be retired into a little secluded cove that would be netted off. And that would give her the ocean experience, but on a small scale, so that she wouldn't be frightened. She'd have rocky bottom, pebbles, seaweed, fish, and the currents and the waves, all of those things that should be what she should have in her natural life, not in the sea circus that she's having to do here, purely for people's entertainment. You're using an animal that's just basically a facsimile, a puppet of what a real orca is. It's just tragic that she's been kept in there in that torturous environment for this long.
If you want to help Lolita, please visit www.orcanetwork.org. The link can be found in the description box.